Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another episode of the Golden Age. This is a series of Warhammer Fantasy Battle Reports for 8th edition, and this battle report's fought between my two friends, Brother Grimm as well as myself. Brother Grimm is bringing the Apocalypse Now, a 3,000 point Orcs and Goblin army, and I am bringing the Avelorn Guards, another 3,000 point High Elves army. This battle report's kind of interesting because I've actually changed up my list a little bit for my Avelorn Guards. I've actually kind of condensed a couple of my units together to make more combat-oriented army. So with that being said, we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought, or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Balor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then to hell with you.
Assemble the army!
Alright, the scenario rules for this one is Battle Line. We have standard deployment conditions as well as standard victory conditions as always. It's a very favorite style of Warhammer to play, and that's the one we'd like to put out the most for our battle reports. So with the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about the battle plan real fast. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x6 table. I'm deploying on the near side of the table, while my friend Brother Grimm is deploying on the far side of the table. And pretty much the battle plan on this one is to play somewhat defensively. I plan on keeping most of my infantry forces right in the middle of the table and kind of making the Orcs and Goblins advance towards me. It's really to my advantage in order to make them cross the battlefield. That way I can whittle down their numbers a little bit with missile fire as well as magic, and I can finish them off in close combat. The thing I'm really worried about the most, however, is in the upper left-hand corner. Those are 3 units of Goblins. Those guys are carrying 3 Fanatics apiece. So because of that, I've put my 2 units of Illyrian Reavers, the Word Bearers, as well as the Silent Striders. I deployed them up forward so that way they can act as sacrificial lambs a little bit in order to absorb the blows from those Fanatics. If I can pop those Fanatic early, I might be able to lock down the left-hand flank because my buddy Brother Grimm won't want to maneuver his forces through those Fanatics, just like how I wouldn't want to either. Now, aside from the Fanatics, the next biggest concern I have, of course, are those 2 units of Orcs. He's got 2 hordes of 40 Orcs apiece. One's got big ones, the other one has Black Orcs, and they got the Immortulz upgrades because of Grimgor Ironheart being in this unit as well. So those are the ones I'm really worried about taking on. My plan is to counterattack and deal with the Immortulz with using my 2 units of infantry. I have my Phoenix Guard as well as my huge unit of White Lions there, which is the Everqueen's Rangers. My plan is to kind of get them a pincer attack if I can and destroy them that way. At the same time, I plan on using my Cavalry and my Silver Sentinels as well as my Sunrunner to deal with the Orc Warboys over there on the right hand side, that huge unit of Biggins, and of course I need to take out Undead Fred and the Loon, the giant over there in the top right hand corner. And that pretty much is my battle plan for this one. In deployment on my far left-hand side, I have 2 units of Illyrian Reavers. Those guys are equipped with bows, spears, as well as hand weapons, light armor, as well as shields. They're also riding Elven Steeds. On the left-hand side, those are the Word Bearers, and the right-hand side, those are the Silent Striders. And right behind them, I have one of my Falling Leaves of Avelorn, which is one of my Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers. In the center is where a vast majority of my infantry forces are located at. On the left-hand side, those are the Ever Wardens. That is a huge unit of 25 Phoenix Guards with the Banner of Eternal Flame. They also got full command. Right next on the right-hand side, that is a honking huge unit of 35 White Lions of Trace. That unit is called the Everqueen's Rangers. Like I said, they got 35 White Lions in that unit. They also have Banner as well as full command. They're also packing the Banner of the World Dragon as well, so that way they have a 2 ward against magical attacks, which could be important because my opponent, Brother Grimm, does have the Foot of Gork, so that might really help out out my guys here a lot. Also leading that unit is also Teclis. My special character is also a Master Wizard. Right behind them is the Dawn Guard. That is a unit of 23 Lothern Sea Guard with full command. They also have bows, and shield, and spears. And leading that is Tanis Laynell, the captain of the Dawn Guard. He is a Sea Helm. He's got the band of the standard discipline is what he ends up happening. He's also my battle standard bearer as well. And the right-hand side of my deployment, in the center lines, on the left-hand side, that is a Summoner, that is a Terranok Chariot, and next to it is the unit called the Silver Sentinels. It is 9 Silver Helms with full command. They also have spears, lances, shields, heavy armor, Ithilmel barding, as well as Elven Steeds. Once again, full command of those guys, and leading that is Tyrion, the General. He's also the special character as well, so that's my center deployment. Up next, we have Brother Grimm's deployment. On the far left-hand side, he's got 3 units of Orcs. On the left-hand side, that is the Backstabbers. That is a unit of 20 Night Goblins with full command. They also got 3 Night Goblin Fanatics as well as short bows. In the center, there's a unit called the Ludas. That is a unit of 38 Night Goblins as well. They're also armored short bows, full command as well. And they also have Netters in that unit, so that makes them kind of deadly and dangerous in close combat. And leading that unit, of course, are 2 characters. We have a Goblin Big Boss named Hobgoblin Distinga. He's also the battle standard bearer. He's also carrying the Spider Banners. That unit has poison attacks. And right next to him is the Shrinking Shroomhead, a Not Goblin Shaman, level 2. He's got the Dispel Scroll as well as a Terrifying Mask of E. And he also has got 2 spells from the lore of the the Little Wa. And right next to them on the right hand side, those are the Sneaky Gits. That's a unit of 20 Night Goblins with full command as well as Night Goblin Fanatics. And they also equip the short bows as well. In the center of the deployment zone, we have that huge unit known as the Immortulz. It's a unit of 39 Black Orcs. Those guys also have the Immortal upgrades. They also got full command as well, and they also have the Razor Standard, so these guys have -1 to their AP as well. And leading that unit is Grimgor Ironhide, the Incarnate of Beasts, which is the special character option from the End Time rules as well. That guy has the Locus of Gur ability, which gives all Orcs and Goblins units within 12 inches of him, if he gets that bounce spell off anyways, +1 strength as well as +1 toughness. And then right behind them are the Kamikaze Boys, which are 2 Goblin Doom Divers. And on the far right hand side of his deployment area, he has the War Boys, which is a huge unit of 39 Orc Biggins with the Biggins upgrades. They got hand weapons, choppas, as well as shields, as well as light armor as well. They also have full command. They also have the standard of discipline that unit as well, so that way they're a little bit stronger in their leadership. And leading them is a Orc Great Shaman named Ruga the Stuntiflea. He's got equipped with level 4 Wizard with the Lore of the Big Wa. He's got Fencer's Blades, Talisman of Endurance, as well as Crown and Command. And then finally, right next to him on the far right hand side, that is Undead Fred and the Loon, which is a giant. And that makes up my deployment for my friend Brother Grimm. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and we roll off for initiative, so you'll go first. Alright, so here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield, and turn number 1 goes to the Orcs and Goblins in this one, so Brother Grimm gets to go first, and this photo is taken after the movement phase. Unfortunately for him, 3 of his Goblin units failed their animosity test, so because of that, all 3 of those groups got squabble, which means they want to charge forward as quick as they can, so they start declaring charges directly against the Word Bearers as well as the Silent Striders. I, of course, decided to flee as a result and fall back a couple of inches, so that way I can get away from them. And unfortunately, because all 3 of his units failed their charge test, they kind of stumble over forward. I think 2 of them went forward 6 inches, and I believe one of them moved over, I think, 7 inches, I think, when the other guy ended up moving. And then, of course, the rest of his army, the War Boys, the Immortulz, as well as Undead Friend the Loon, those guys march forward as quick as they can, sweeping over the right-hand side of the battlefield, heading for my main battle lines. And that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. During the magic phase, my opponent, Brother Grimm, actually had a pretty powerful one. He actually ended up gaining 11 power dice, if I remember correctly. And the first thing, of course, he says gets the spell off, of course, is Hand of Gork. And basically what that does allows you to pick a unit and move them up forward 46 inches, 4d6 inches, there we go. And so what he ended up doing is he cast that spell off. He managed to get that one off. I did try to dispel it normally, but unfortunately my casting value wasn't high enough. So because of that, Undead Friend the Loon goes flying across the battlefield all the way to the far right-hand flank of my army, and he's staring down the barrel down my entirety of the right-hand flank of my battle lines. So that is pretty intimidating because that giant could really screw up my plans if he manages to get that one off. So that part was pretty scary. At the same time, he also casts Fists of Gorkoff as well on a Shaman, giving him +3 attacks as well as +3 strength. Also gives him +1 to his ward save as well. I let that spell go because I wasn't really worried about that one too much, because the one spell I really was worried about was the Foot of Gork. So he does to try to cast that spell with the Foot of Gorkoff, but unfortunately for him though, I decided to use the Dispel Scroll from Hoeth which is controlled by Teclis, so I managed to dispel that one no problem. And then of course Brother Grimm and I roll off our d6 to see who has the higher score. I ended up with a 6, he ended up with a 4. So because of that, his shaman forgets the Foot of Gork because the spell just gets magically erased from his mind, which is a big weight off my shoulders because that's one less thing I got to worry about. So that part was pretty epic as well. So with the magic phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase was absolutely atrocious. My opponent decided to concentrate fire with both of his kamikaze boys directly into my Silver Sentinels, and he managed to kill 7 of my Silver Sentinels right off the bat. So 7 of my Silver Helms are now dead. The only thing I have left are the standard bearer as well as the champion, and as well as Tyrion as well, and that's all I end up having left from that unit, which was totally horrific. The reason why that's the case is because my Silver Helms do not have ward saves at all, and as of course with the Doomdiver Catapult, no armor saves are allowed from that attack, so that part was atrocious. That was just horrific seeing all the damage that took place there. And that pretty much makes the shooting phase for the Orcs and Goblins. And since nobody's engaged in close combat, we skip the combat phase and we go directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the High Elves. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 1 for the High Elves, and this picture is after the move phase, and I've actually done some dramatic move for the most part. The first thing I do is I declare a charge with both the Sunrunner as well as my Silver Sentinels. The reason why is because I only have a couple of those guys left, and if I don't commit them fast, they'll just get shot off the table by those Doomdiver Catapults, and that's exactly what I do. Luckily for me, I do manage to get off both the charges for both the Sunrunner as well as Silver Sentinels. They go crashing directly into the front of the War Boys, so that part was pretty epic as well. At the same time, I keep my infantry forces exactly where they're located at because there's no need for them to move, because once again I am playing defensively on this one. And on the left hand side, I decided to rally up my 2 units of my 2 units of Valyrian Reavers, and since they're skirmishers and light cav, you know, that's exactly what they do, and I move them up their normal movement allowance. I tuck up the word bearers to the left hand side as well as the Sinistriders going forward because I plan on catching those goblins in a crossfire. My plan is to hopefully break his 2 units of 20 goblins before they get a chance to pop their fanatics, so that way I can kill those guys and not to worry about them, you know, having fanatics pop out anywhere as well. I'm also with outside of 8 inches range, so I don't have to worry about the fanatics coming after me either. And that's pretty much what I decided to do for my movement phase. Here's a close-up of the left-hand side so you get a better shot of both the Word Bearers as well as the Sinistriders, getting ready to bring the pain with their shooting directly into the backstabbers over there on the left-hand side. And here's a close-up of the Sunrunner as well as the Silver Sentinels crashing directly headlong into the War Boys. And hopefully I can destroy enough of those guys to make them cause a break test. And that pretty much makes up the move phase on this one. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. Alright, so we go directly to the magic phase, and the first spell I cast off is, of course, the Tempest. And Magic get that one off directly onto the Ludas. Magic kill 11 of those guys right off the bat. And unfortunately for my opponent, he failed his panic test. He also failed the reroll for his Battle Standard Bearer, so because of that, those guys run back 4 inches. And to make matters worse, they also have suffer -1 to hit against when shooting, but of course they're also fleeing, so that's not much of a problem for me whatsoever. So that part was kind of cool. And at the same time, I cast out the spell Walk Between Worlds, and I moved up the Dawn Guard up normal 10 inches forward, so that way they're in line with my Phoenix Guard as well as my White Lions, and so that way they can also do some pretty impressive shooting as well, having teleported and being ethereal and moving across the table as quick as they possibly can. And that nets me that, and at the same time gives me a 5 ward save because of the lore attribute from the lore of High Magic for my White Lions of Trace. In the shooting phase, I concentrate fire with 2 of my Falling Leaves of Avelorn directly into Undead Fred and the Loon. Managed to hit him both times with 2 single-shot bolts directly into the chest. Not only did they manage to wound, but they also managed to cause 3 wounds apiece, and because it generally has 6 wound, he gets shot in the chest, he falls face down, and boom, with a Thundercrack, I killed that giant right off the bat, which is really good because that guy threatening my right-hand flank was a huge concern for me. At the same time, I also concentrate fire with my 2 units of Valyrian Reavers as well as multiple shots of my other Avelorn, or the Fallen Leaves Avelorn, directly into the backstabbers. Managed to kill 9 of those guys, and because of that, they failed their break test and they flee back, I think, 6 inches when they were doing, so they ended up running away. And then concentrate fire with the Dawn Guard directly into the sneaky gets rather than the right hand side. Managed to kill, I think, 9 of those guys as well, but unfortunately for me though, those guys managed to pass their panic tests and they just kind of stand the ground, and the reason why is because they're within range of Grimgor Ironhide, so those guys will not be breaking whatsoever. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, combat actually went really well for me, all things considering. Now, they did kill 2 of my Silver Helms, so that part was kind of sad. However, my opponent decided to declare a challenge with his shaman, Rugen Stundi Flare, and of course, Terry decided to accept it. Now, under normal conditions, you know, having a wizard fight against a general would not be a really good idea, but he's also playing an orc shaman, so, you know, they're kid out to fight. He's also got 3-up attacks as well as 3-up strength and a boosted 4-up ward save, which is actually pretty good, considering that he's only a wizard. So my general, of course, answers the call. My general managed to kill him right off the bat without any problems, going right through his, cutting right through him, no problem. My opponent unfortunately just failed his word saves. He rolled like a bunch of 1s and 2s, so because of that, his shaman does get killed. And because Tyrion is still fighting, I decided to pop the fire breath weapon from Sunfang, and by the time it was all said and done between the attacks of my silver helms before they died, as well as Tyrion, managed to kill 8 of those guys right off the bat, and also managed to kill the shaman as well, so that part was pretty cool. At the same time, the Sunrunner did manage to kill 4 orcs with impact hits alone, but was unable to do anything with the riders on the back, and of course they also inflicted a wound onto my Sunrunner too, which is pretty rough. Now normally with all the injuries I cause in these guys, it'd actually be really good for me, so that way I could take some negatives off their leadership for their break test, but unfortunately they have ranks on me, so because of that, automatically steadfast, so they test on their unmodified leadership. The tragic part was, though, when my buddy decided to roll for his leadership, these guys are leadership 8, including using the standard discipline because their orc shaman is now dead. He rolled a 9, if you can see that 2d6 score right there on the right-hand side, which means that these guys beat their leadership score by 1, so because of that, they typically break. And unfortunately for them, they were not within range of their general, so they couldn't use his unmodified leadership, and because, for one reason, because they're out of range, and 2, because of the standard discipline, and lastly, they're not within range of the battle standard bearer, so these boys break. They break. I decided to pursue forward with my Sunrunner. They run 5 inches and I run forward 7 inches. So because of that, the Sunrunner runs over the last of the war boys and manages to chop those guys down to the last man as they're fleeing across the battlefield. I do a quick combat reform with Tyrion real quick, so that way he's facing on the left-hand side to start engaging the Immortulz, and that pretty much makes the combat phase on this side of the battlefield. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Orcs and Goblins. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Orcs and Goblins, and this photo is taken after the movement phase. And the first thing that Brother Grimm decides to do, he decides to declare a charge with his Immortulz directly into the Dawn Guard. But unfortunately for him, though, when he went to declare that charge, he only rolled like a 5, so because of that, they're nowhere near within range where they engage my Dawn Guard, so because of that, they only move up forward 3 inches, which is pretty tragic, because if he would have gotten that charge off, it would have been really devastating for my Lothern Sea Guard. He does march up his sneaky gits, and as those guys move up forward, they actually get within 8 inches of my White Lions that pops his Fanatics. All 3 Fanatics launch. 2 of them only move up 5 inches. The other one moves up only 7 inches, just 1 inch short of actually hitting my White Lions, which is pretty lucky for me. At the same time, he also manages to rally the Ludas, so the Ludas turn around and start heading back into the fray again, but the backstab as though they failed the leadership test. They roll an 11 in order to flee, and they go flying off the tabletop and netting me some points, which is kind of cool. In the magic phase, Brother Grimm decides to cast the Vindictive Glare off from the Shrieking Shroomheaders directly into my Silent Striders. Magic killed 3 of my Illyrian Reavers, no problem with that Vindictive Glare, so that part was kind of rough. Unfortunately, luckily for me though, I did manage to pass my panic check, so because of that, my Illyrian Reavers are still standing. If I lose one more guy, however, that will not be the case because I will need insane bravery and insane courage in order to keep those guys standing at that point, so that part was kind of rough. And in the shooting phase, my opponent of course concentrated fire with his 2 Doomdiver catapults directly into the Everqueen's Rangers. Unfortunately, one of his shots went way off to the left-hand side about 10 inches, so not much came from that. And then one of them did manage to clip my unit and only managed to put 3 hits on with their strength 5 no armor save hits, but because I have a 5 ward save, I didn't really do much of anything, so because I only lost 1 of my White Lions, so that part was pretty epic as well. And since nobody's engaged in close combat, we skip the combat phase and go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the High Elves. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2 for the High Elves, and this photo is taken after the movement phase. And the first thing I do is I declare a couple of charges. The first thing I do is I declare a charge with my Illyrian Reavers from the Silent Striders. There's only two of them left, so I decided to sacrifice them by having them charge directly into the Ludas. And the reason why I do that is so that way I could pop their Fanatics as well. So their Fanatics do get popped off. One of them does impact my unit of Illyrian Reavers and manage to wipe those guys no problem. Another one flies forward, I think 6 inches. Another one flies forward only 1 inch as well. So the rest of the other 2 Fanatics are now right in the middle of the battlefield there. At the same time, I also charge forward with my Phoenix Guards from the Everwardens and charge directly into those Sneaky Gits, so that way I engage those guys in close combat. My plan is hopefully I can break that unit of Sneaky Gits, destroy those guys, kill them. Hopefully they'll set me up for a good flank charge in order to catch the flank of the Immortulz there on the left-hand side. I'll do exactly the same thing with Tyrion and get him in the right-hand side, and then of course I can finish him off with my White Lions or my Dawn Guard, whatever happens to be better for the in order to charge forward. At the same time, for my normal movement allowance, I march around the left-hand flank behind the Ludas with my unit of Word Bearers, so that way they can hit to the back of the Immortulz or hit the the Ludas from the back as well. At the same time, I also move my chariot around that giant log piece right in the middle of the battlefield, so that way they can get to the back behind the Immortulz as well. And that pretty much makes it my move phase on this one. And here's a close-up of my Everwardens charging directly into the front of those sneaky gits. And once again, I haven't really moved my white lines of trace too much because my Everqueen's Rangers really don't want to take 3d6, strength 5, no armor save hits from those fanatics, because those things are absolutely dangerous. Alright, so during the magic phase, I managed to get off Fiery Convocation off directly onto the Immortulz. I do manage to kill 12 of those guys, so that part was pretty cool as well. And not to mention, those guys will always take strength 4 hits for every turn unless he manages to dispel it, and I cast that one on a 19+, so that part was pretty epic as well. Unfortunate for me, though, the Black Orcs do have immune to psychology, so they don't have to worry about taking panic tests, so they're still golden, and they don't really care about losing their friends, so that part was kind of rough. At the same time, I cast off Walk Between Worlds one more time onto my Dawn Guard as well, moving them forward 20 inches over to the far right-hand side of the table, as you can see there. So because of that, they're now lined up in a shooting formation facing the right-hand flank of the Immortulz. That way they can also charge in the right-hand flank if necessary, and hopefully catch these guys in a full envelopment where I can slaughter these Immortulz by just having more bodies, surrounding them and chopping up that way. And that pretty much makes the magic phase, also earning me a 5 award save for my White Lions of Trace for my Everqueen's Rangers, which is actually pretty cool as well. During the shooting phase, I wipe out the 3 fanatics that were in front of my White Lions of Trace. I hit them both with 2 shots from my Bolt Thorns, using multiple shots to kill 2 of them, and then I also used my archers from the Dawn Guard to take out the 3rd one, so that part was pretty cool. And on the left-hand flank, I do exactly the same thing with the fanatics. Open up with my Falling Leaves of Avelorn, manage to kill one of those fanatics with a multiple shot. The other one is still alive though, but you can't get them all because they're only individual targets, they don't count as a unit. And then of course I open up fire with my Word Bearers on the left-hand side onto the Ludas. I only managed, I think I killed 2 or 3 of those guys. That's what I'm doing with their longbow fire. And that pretty much makes the shooting phase up there. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, my Phoenix Guards and the Everwardens had no problem whatsoever killing off the very last of those sneaky gits, so because of that, I just destroy that unit. I decide not to overrun, so I take a leadership test and pass it, so that way I don't worry about overrunning. I do a combat reform a little bit to look at the left-hand flank of the Immortals, so that way they can get a nice flank charge off on those guys as well. And that pretty much makes it my combat phase on this one. So with combat phase over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Orcs and Goblins. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Orcs and Goblins, and this photo is taken after the move phase, and as you can see in this photo, my buddy Brother Giver decides to charge forward. He's realizing that his forces are being slowly whittled down, so he needs to make some really quick moves real fast, otherwise not much of his army is going to be left alive to do any damage whatsoever. So the first thing he does, he declares a charge forward with his Black Orcs from the Immortals, and those guys have no problem making the distance directly into my Everwardens, so now those guys are caught in a forward attack. But then he says to also charge forward as Ludas as well, and those guys tear through their own Fanatic. They take, I think, 3 losses from those goblins getting killed by the Fanatic, and they charge directly into the left-hand flank of my Everwardens. So now my Everwardens are now caught in a pincer attack between these 2 forces, so that part was pretty rough as well, so I was not looking forward to that. But luckily though, my Everwardens are Phoenix Guard. They're the best, option they have to like tar pitting a unit because they got that 4 ward saves. Plus they could dish out punishments as well, so that part's kind of nice. And that's the only thing I really have going for me at this point, so that's what occurred here in the movement phase. And in the magic phase, he used all of his power dice in order to dispel Fiery Convocation on his Immortals off, so because of that, that spell goes away. He doesn't have to worry about taking any damage from that fire spell anymore. Alright, so that takes us directly to the combat phase. We skipped the shooting phase because it was a wash for my opponent. He actually tried to hit Tyrion with his 2 Doomdiver catapults, but his catapults just went way off and weren't able to recorrect themselves. But this photo is taken out the combat phase though between the Everwardens as well as the Immortals as well as the Ludas. When it was all said and done, I did manage to kill 4 of those Night Goblins, so that part was kind of cool. They were unable to cause any injuries onto me. However, the most of the damage though came from the Black Orcs. My opponent decided to use hand weapons and shields for his Orcs, so that way they get one up to their armor save, because I do have halberds in this unit, and I get to attack first. Unfortunately for me though, I just flubbed a lot of my rolls. Those Black Orcs were pretty much just making the armor rolls like it was going out of style. Managed to kill only 4 of those Black Orcs. However, the Black Orcs, because they're fighting in a horde formation and plus Grimgor Ironhide is in that unit as well, they do manage to kill 10 of my Phoenix Guard as well, which is pretty bad, which gives him a combat score of 6. Plus he charged and he has a banner, and he also has a rank as well, giving him a combat score of 9. I have a banner, which is great, so it drops me down back to 8 again, but unfortunately though, I don't get any rank bonuses, and the reason why I don't get any rank bonuses is because I'm currently charged the flank and I am disrupted. So because of that, he beats me by a combat score of 8, and my Phoenix Guard only combat score 9, which means I have to roll insane courage for these guys to stand their ground. Unfortunately for me, though, my Everwardens did break and they did flee back. I think they fled back like 7 inches, and the Orcs pursued forward 11, I think is what ended up happening. So because of that, the Black Orcs and the Immortals chopped down my Everwardens and killed them all the last man, and they overrun and smashed directly into my Everqueen's Rangers as well. Now this combat I am looking forward to because I do have 34 White Lions of Trace with great weapons as well as heavy armor. I also got Teclis in that unit. They also have the Bat of the World Dragon, so I'm really excited to see exactly what ends up happening when I fight against these guys as well, because even though Grimgor Ironhide might have his blood axe, I think it's called Snick, is what it's Get Snick, even though he has that axe, it is a magical weapon, and I have a 2 ward save against magical weapons, so that part would be kind of cool as well to see exactly how that one flies out. So that being said, that pretty much ends the combat phase on this one, so we go directly to the bottom number 3 for the High Elves. Alright, so that takes us directly to the bottom of turn number 3 after the movement phase for the High Elves, and what I decided to do at this point is I decided to commit my forces forward. The first thing I do is I actually charge in with the Dawn Guard over to the right-hand flank of the Immortals, so now the Immortals are now hitting the right-hand flank. I also charge in Tyrion as well, who hits the back of the Immortals as well, so because now the Immortals are now in a full development, White Lions in the front, Tyrion in the back, as well as Lothar Seaguard on the right-hand side. I also decided to charge forward my members of the Word Bearers directly into the left-hand flank of the Ludas, because those goblins need to die. And the last thing I do for my movement phase, I move up my chariot, trying to go around the corner now, so that way it can fly right to the back of the Immortals and join the fray as well. And that pretty much makes up the movement phase on this one. In the magic phase, I only managed to get 1 spell off during the magic phase, and that spell was Arcane Unforging. I decided to put it directly onto Grimgor Ironhide, and what was the magical item that was actually randomly picked, ended up being his Bloodforged armor. So because of that, he does lose that, because with Uncaged, on Arcane Unforging, you actually destroy a magical item in that case. You also take a wound as well, which is pretty cool as well. So because of that, Grimgor Ironhide now only has 3 wounds left, and now his Bloodforged armor is gone, which means now he no longer has an armor save, and he no longer has a ward save either. Which is really good, because the plan is I'm going to challenge him with Tyrion, and hopefully Tyrion will be able to kill off Grimgor Ironhide, and that can finish off the rest of the unit with close combat attacks. So that makes it the magic phase on this one. And the shooting phase, I concentrate fire with all 3 bolt throwers from the falling leaves of Avelorn directly onto the 2 Kamikaze boys. I believe I managed to kill both those off as well with single shots, so that part was pretty epic as well. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And the combat phase, both Tyrion as well as Grimgor Ironhide face off and challenge each other into single combat. When it was all said and done, I managed to put 2 wounds on Grimgor Ironhide, but that guy carries 4 wounds, so he's still kicking. He also managed to put a 1 wound onto Tyrion as well, so that part was kind of sad. The only thing that was going in for my favor at this point, though, is that Grimgor Ironhide does not have Bloodforged armor, and that's the only reason why I'm able to stick it to him, because without any armor saves whatsoever, he's kind of vulnerable to being attacked. The only thing that's saving him, though, is his high toughness, and the only thing that's saving me is my armor save, as well as my ward save as well. For the rest of the combat phase, it actually ended up being in my favor. My Illyrian Reavers had no problem destroying. I think they killed all 5 of the goblins they managed to hit with their charging in the flank, and it caused them to break as well. They flee, I run them down, I killed those guys, no problem. Combat between the mortals as well as my White Lions of the Everqueen's Rangers was absolute slaughter. Ended up being that they only killed 2 of my High Elf White Lions of Trace, so that part was kind of sad. But in the end, though, I managed to hi-ho and chop those guys down. I think I managed to kill some ungodly amount. I think it was like 15 Black Orcs by the time it was all said and done, between the combat between my White Lions as well as my Dawn Guards, so that part was pretty epic as well. Unfortunately for me, though, he does manage to pass his panic test, so because of that, he does stand his ground, and we go for another round. In the end, though, it doesn't really matter, because Brother Grimm decides to call a game at this point, realizing there's no way he's going to win this one. So because of that, that ends the game, and also nets a victory for yours truly. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the High Elves win this one. We're going to go directly to the After Action Report, because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright people, now it's time for the After Action Report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the After Action Report for Warhammer Fantasy Battle report number 66 with the Golden Age, and this one ended up being a victory for yours truly. In the end, I managed to score 3,986 victory points versus Brother Grimm's 1,262 points. I lost the Silver Sentinels, the Word Bearers, the Silent Striders, as well as the Everwardens, while Brother Grimm lost Roga the Stunty Flayer, Hobgrab the Stinga, the Shrink and Shroomhead, the Ludas, the Backstabbers, the Sneaky Gits, the War Boys, the Kamikaze Boys, as well as Undead Fred and the Loon. In the end, this game was extremely fun. I love this new list I pretty much came up with, and I pretty much dominate all phases of the game after it was all said and done. I have powerful movement exploits with my skirmishing units, I have powerful magic with tech lists, I have deadly shooting with my bolt throwers as well as my Dawn Guard, Lothran Sea Guard, and I have really excellent combat with all of my White Lions. I pretty much have an answer for everything in this list, and I pretty much love the way it's working out. Now, a couple of factors led for me winning this one was the animosity test that my buddy Brother Grimm failed at the beginning of the game. His Night Goblins failed their animosity test, so it kind of locked down the left-hand flank for the most part. Had they passed animosity tests, they probably could have committed their Venax suitor, which would have caused all kinds of problems for me, and also be able to shoot as well, and that could have locked down his left-hand flank and prevented me from actually using my forces on that side. Also, killing Undead Fred and the Loon on the right-hand flank was also important because it freed up my units on the right-hand side. I really didn't have to worry about dealing with that giant too much as well. Now, there was some luck going into this. The combat between Tyrion as well as the War Boys was pretty much luck for the most part. He only failed his leadership test by 1, and had factors been different, this battle part would have turned out extremely differently because I had to deal with those War Boys still, instead of only having to deal with the Immortulz. In the end, this game was extremely fun against an awesome opponent, and as always, I am looking forward to the rematch. So that's good to do for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news on this channel. That's good to do for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.